Jean-Paul Sartre's Being and Nothingness, A Philosophical Journey Through Freedom and Existence. Jean-Paul Sartre's Being and Nothingness, an essay on phenomenological ontology, 1943, stands as a defining work in existentialist philosophy, offering an ambitious and provocative investigation into the nature of human freedom, consciousness, and being. Drawing upon the traditions of phenomenology and ontology, Sartre carves out a unique philosophical vision in which human existence is defined by radical freedom, situated within a world that offers no metaphysical guarantees, only the burden, and promise, of self-definition. This sweeping treatise is not only an exploration of abstract metaphysical ideas but also a reflection on the existential conditions of everyday life. Philosophical foundations and intellectual influences. Sartre's work is deeply rooted in the philosophical developments of the early 20th century. At its core lies the influence of Edmund Husserl's phenomenology, particularly the idea of intentionality, that consciousness is always directed towards something beyond itself. Sartre adapts this insight as a central tool for analyzing how human beings relate to the world and themselves. Equally formative is Martin Heidegger's ontology, especially From Being and Time, 1927, which inspired Sartre's focus on existence and being in the world. Yet Sartre departs from Heidegger in crucial ways, particularly by rejecting the latter's more collective metaphysical framework in favor of emphasizing individual human freedom and subjectivity. The existentialist underpinnings of being and nothingness are unmistakable. Sartre proclaims that man is condemned to be free, affirming a universe without inherent purpose, where human beings must forge meaning through choices. This existential emphasis resonates with Nietzsche's rejection of metaphysical absolutes and celebrates the creative potential of human agency. Sartre also engages with Hegelian dialectics, as well as Kierkegaard's meditations on individual existence and anxiety, fusing continental traditions into a distinctive philosophical synthesis that places human freedom at the forefront of inquiry. Being in itself and being for itself, modes of existence. Central to Sartre's ontology is the distinction between being in itself, en soi, and being for itself, pour soi. The former refers to the mode of existence found in inanimate objects, beings that are self-contained, fixed, and unaware. A chair, for instance, simply exists as what it is, without awareness or potential for transformation. In contrast, being for itself characterizes human consciousness. This mode of being is defined by self-awareness, intentionality, and reflection, enabling individuals to transcend what they are and envision what they might become. Consciousness is always consciousness of something, Sartre writes, underscoring its dynamic, outward-reaching nature. A person contemplating their career path, for example, exemplifies being for itself, as they are not bound by any fixed essence but instead construct themselves through choices. This distinction highlights Sartre's commitment to viewing human life as open-ended, fluid, and fundamentally free. Nothingness and the role of negation. A cornerstone of Sartre's existential analysis is the concept of nothingness, néant, which he sees as intrinsic to human consciousness. Unlike inanimate objects, human beings are capable of negating reality, they can say no, imagine alternatives, and reject the present as insufficient. In this sense, humans bring nothingness into the world. As Sartre memorably puts it, man is the being through which nothingness comes into the world. This capacity for negation is what makes freedom possible. A person's dissatisfaction with their job, for instance, reveals an absence, a perceived lack in their current reality, that prompts the desire for change. Sartre's vision of nothingness positions it not as nihilistic despair but as a generative force, a space in which the imagination, freedom, and transformation can arise. Radical freedom, bad faith, and the burden of responsibility. At the heart of being and nothingness is the thesis of radical freedom. Sartre argues that humans are not bound by a predetermined essence, rather, they are free to choose and thus bear full responsibility for who they become. This idea is famously expressed in the phrase existence precedes essence, meaning that a person first exists and then defines themselves through actions. However, this freedom comes with a heavy burden, what Sartre calls the condition of being condemned to be free. To escape the anxiety and weight of this responsibility, individuals often fall into what Sartre terms bad faith, mauvaise foi. This is a form of self-deception in which a person denies their freedom by hiding behind social roles or external pressures. The example of a waiter who behaves as if his identity is entirely exhausted by his role illustrates this dynamic. He enacts a performance, pretending that he is nothing but a waiter, thus avoiding the existential truth that he is more than any role he plays. Man is not what he is and is what he is not, Sartre writes, emphasizing the paradoxical structure of human freedom and the constant potential for transcendence. The look and the problem of objectification. Another significant aspect of Sartre's analysis concerns the look, le regard, how we become objects under the gaze of others. When someone observes us, we are transformed from subjects into objects, our freedom is constrained by their interpretation of who we are. Sartre describes this experience as one in which the weight of another's freedom is imposed upon us. The feeling of being watched, of becoming self-conscious, is not merely psychological but ontological, it changes the structure of our being. This theme speaks directly to the alienating power of social life, where individuals are constantly negotiating between how they see themselves and how they are seen by others. Sartre's exploration of the look remains profoundly relevant in a world increasingly mediated by surveillance, social media, and performative identities. Authenticity and living in good faith. In response to the temptations of bad faith and social objectification, Sartre offers a vision of authenticity, living in a way that acknowledges one's freedom and responsibility. To live authentically is to reject external definitions and create meaning through honest, deliberate choices. A person who chooses a life path based on genuine passion, even in defiance of social expectations, exemplifies this existential ideal. Authenticity is not a moral commandment but an existential achievement. It entails confronting the anxiety of freedom, resisting self-deception, and recognizing the open-ended nature of human identity. Sartre's notion of authenticity thus provides a guide for ethical reflection and personal growth in a fragmented world. Practical implications for everyday life. While Sartre's language can be dense and abstract, the implications of being and nothingness are strikingly practical. His philosophy invites personal growth through heightened self-awareness and intentional action. It offers tools for overcoming alienation by revealing the power dynamics embedded in interpersonal encounters and societal expectations. It encourages ethical reflection, particularly on the consequences of bad faith, and in authentic living. And it offers insight into the nature of human relationships, where the tension between subjectivity and objectification shapes how we relate to others and ourselves. Critiques and limitations. Despite its enduring influence, Being and Nothingness has drawn substantial criticism. Some argue that Sartre's emphasis on radical freedom underestimates social and material constraints, such as class, gender, and historical context. Even Simone de Beauvoir, while largely aligned with Sartre, emphasizes the situated nature of freedom in the second sex. Others point to the abstract and often opaque nature of Sartre's prose. Philosophers like Gilbert Ryle dismissed the work as philosophical window dressing, while critics from the communitarian tradition, such as Alistair MacIntyre, argue that Sartre's focus on the autonomous individual neglects the importance of tradition, community, and shared narratives. Moreover, Sartre's rejection of universal moral principles raises ethical concerns. Without a foundation for collective ethics, how can one adjudicate between competing value systems? Thinkers like Jürgen Habermas have criticized existentialism for its ethical ambiguity, urging a more dialogical, intersubjective approach to moral life. Conclusion: freedom as a challenge and possibility. Jean-Paul Sartre's Being and Nothingness remains a towering achievement in modern philosophy. Its exploration of being, nothingness, freedom, and bad faith continues to challenge and inspire. At once abstract and deeply human, Sartre's vision affirms that while existence is contingent and often absurd, it is also rich with possibility. The task of living authentically, of embracing freedom and responsibility without excuse, demands courage, but also promises a life of meaning and integrity in an uncertain world. Thanks for watching. If you found this video insightful, consider subscribing to keep up to date with our upcoming content.